Hunting for that magical genie with piles of cash? Join Candace and her guests as they uncover financial secrets, have a laugh at past mistakes, and savor financial rebounds. Thank you for listening. Let's dive in and do something today that your future self will thank you for.
Welcome to the Money Flow of Genie podcast. I am so excited today to have as a guest to share about her experience and the flow of money and abundance in her life is Mandy McAllister. Hello, Mandy. Welcome.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here, Candace. Thank you for this invitation.
This is fantastic. And one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on, and then I'll tell our guests about a little bit more about you rather than just, being in my head and thinking everyone knows, um, is that I've been in the multifamily world of investing for 4 years now. And I've watched you. You were one of the coaches that came on when I was looking at the mentorship program that I chose. And just by being in this world and then, watching you grow, I've been really, you're like a mentor to me just from on the side because you really have your stuff together and you make really good choices. Hey, maybe you may not feel like it in the moment, but I just want to thank you for that. And I thought that you would be excellent here because I think you would inspire and really share. You have a lot of experience to share with people. And you're not afraid to say that the world is not lollipops and rainbows all the time.
That is absolutely true, Candace. I could not be more grateful for that gift of that compliment. And I will say that we're all just running this game. We're all running this race and just trying to figure out what's right ahead of us. Right. But when you're in the arena playing the game, it's a different thing. Right. And I applaud you for being in this game and giving back because that is the purpose of my life is if I can inspire or touch a life and impact someone with anything it is that I do, that is the reason that I've been put here.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so now let me tell our listeners who you are. So she is a multifamily real estate investor, a mindset ninja, that's for sure, and a connector. You've spent the bulk of your career in medical device sales, chasing cases and commission checks. And in 2021, you left your W-2 to lean on financial independence and that you built through real estate investing, which is just phenomenal. Just that in 2021, you made that decision and here you are now. So you serve as the CEO of Go Abundance Women, a tribe of healthy, wealthy, generous women who choose to lead epic lives. I love that. I want you to touch on that a little bit more as well. Your real estate expertise includes repositioning underperforming assets to increase cash flow and value. So from that point, that's who you are. Anything else you want to add that before I move to the next little segment of the podcast?
Well, a big piece of my life is I made a lot of these changes because I wanted to be the mom who got to go on field trips with my kid. Like I didn't want to be on call. That's why I didn't go to med school. Then I ended up on call in medical device sales. So I realized I needed to make a change, and I couldn't be more proud to be mama to Duncan and bonus mama to Vince and Eva. So that's a really big part of what I do.
Oh, and there are going to be so many listeners that are going to relate to that, just that alone, wanting to put the family first. But how do you do that without being totally stressed out about money at the same time? Because you can't perform and be there for someone if you're stressed out.
Totally.
That's the one thing about finances is that it always lingers in the back of your mind if you are under stress.
Exactly. And one thing that I learned when I was first starting this is, many multifamily investors are drawn to the idea of syndication. But when you actually do the math, if you get 5% of a GP, you actually own like 1.8% of that deal. And you're dependent on these acquisition fees and disposition fees to be able to live your life. Well, what happens if you don't find doable deals? So what informed kind of my initial approach was I want this floor of income. I want to own stuff for the long term, and I want a floor of income so that I can be comfortable enough. I don't live like a queen off of that, $9,000 that I had when I quit my W-2, but I definitely live comfortably and can go do the stuff that matters to me. So once you hit that floor of income, which is just a math problem, then that's when you can start to swing for the fences.
Absolutely. I agree with you wholeheartedly on that. And I want to go back into that. But before we go, so I don't forget, There's the part of my podcast that I really like to open up with, and that is the self-praise showcase. So, and that's to hold space for you and anyone else in the audience that, we're not allowed in society where it's shaming to be, boastful, and that's wrong. So I would like you to share. I'm going to hold that space for you and have our listeners think about something that they have for themselves to boast about yourself for a little bit, big or small, doesn't matter what it is.
I love it. I'll say too that this idea of not getting to be proud of the cool stuff you've pulled off, like that's difficult. I remember the first 53 unit building, larger building that I bought. I went to like a neighborhood party that night, I was so proud, Candace. We bought this $4 million deal. It was a big thinking thing. And I had figured it out and cracked the code, and I was so proud. And I told a neighbor, and she said, "Oh, must be nice."
Oh,
Right? That's I like, how deflating. Like, no, I worked my booty off for a very long time, a lot of effort, a lot of saving, a lot of, like, giving up stuff so that I got to do that. So, a big reason I joined Go Abundance Women was because we do hold this space for each other. So, this is something that I agree with you is not in the normal world, but it's so powerful when you find a group of people who are doing it for you. So, things that I am super proud of, I am an excellent wingman for my girls. I am amazing at picking up on the thing that someone needs, the connection that's going to take them to the next level, and asking the questions of those girls to be able to help them figure out the introduction that will change the ball game for them. And I couldn't be more proud. So my little guy, Duncan, is 8. He just started the 3rd grade today. And for every year that he's been in school, they vote like the kindest kid, the most athletic kid, like those things. Every single year he's been in school, he's won the caring pillar. That he's the kid that looks
wow.
out for other kids. Like if he's not 130 IQ, if he's not a billionaire, I've done something cool in the world because my kid is showing up this time, you know?
Oh, wow. That is just a moment to be held right there, to know that all that, 8 years of work that it's those you just have to hold this moment. This little moment is just something that you will always reflect upon, and just like my heart just fills. It's so wonderful. I'm so,
Thank you. Well, I haven't won yet. Like I get it. He's 8, but
I,
we're kind
listen.
by the age of 8.
Ah, that's so fantastic. Ah, I love that. And I love the fact that you're also, not only you're talking about your self-praise, but you're also bringing your son into it, because it's something that he too is doing.
Yeah.
You had an
Every night
influence, but it's his choice in the end.
100%. Every night before bed, he has to tell me 3 things he's grateful for. That priming your brain in a way that like I'm gonna brainwash. I'm a mindset ninja. This kid that he's gonna remember to think of the things that he's grateful for, and that feels really important.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Oh my God. I'm just getting goosebumps just thinking about that. It's so good. It's so good. All right, so let's go back to Go Abundance.
Mhm.
And it really is very important. This is something that I did I know for myself from my own personal experience, and obviously just you too has experienced this, is that you basically are who you hang around with. And I found that I would hold secrets of what I wanted to do. I wouldn't talk about, like for this podcast, for instance, I didn't talk about doing this podcast for a long time until it was ready to launch, because I knew that it would be intimidating for people that they've never podcasted before, all of that. So tell me about like how you shifted from that. What made you that moment at the party? Like, obviously it was, it wasn't like completely devastating, but it hurt. Like, how did you move through that? What did you do to go to the next step and continue to grow instead of trying to keep yourself small to fit in?
It was more of a light bulb moment than painful. Like, oh, okay. The level of like interest in becoming whatever I'm trying to become, that's not interesting to you, neighbor. So I want to be next to people who are informing my future. And just like you said, I actually say this to the 14-year-old all the time. who you hang around with is what normal starts to look like. So if you're hanging around people who are building multi-million-dollar businesses, that will look normal and you'll go do it. If you're hanging out with people who are trying, vaping or skipping school, 14-year-old kid, that will look normal and you'll probably start to do it. So just understand you're informing what normal looks like. I'll say that I originally found out about GoBundance. This is the organization that the guys who host the Bigger Pockets podcast joined, and it blew up. It started as a men's organization, and then in 2020 they started the women's side. And I immediately, as soon as I found out there was a women's side, I joined it because I wanted to be around other women who, wanted to be there for their kids, but didn't necessarily felt called to like build something beyond stay-at-home mom. And I am not about saying that stay-at-home mom is like an easy thing because I know that I couldn't do it. But the level of freedom that I want to feel like money's kind of figured out so that I'm a free mom instead of like a stay-at-home mom, you know? So being next to people who are building these big things that go on epic adventures, that have incredibly connected relationships that they're in, have healthy bodies, all of these things that matter to me, I wanted to be around those people because I think one of the most annoying things about the human psyche is that you don't believe you can do something until you see that it's been done. And I think there's something extra to being a woman that if you don't think a woman can do it, if you haven't seen a woman do it, then, you don't think it's possible. And being part of GoBundance first as a member, and now I get to serve as leader, I've met women who own islands. I've met women with $100 million portfolios. I realize that in this game that we are both playing, that we were all playing, it's all about choices and figuring out what is reasonable enough in terms of taking those risks. And I find that to be really powerful.
Oh, definitely. And the thing that I've learned over the course of time is that uh, when we basically remove the veil of financial net worth, all of that. We're just humans talking one on one. And when you allow yourself to not do the comparison, I'm not worthy to talk to this person because they have a net worth of, or they're intimidating me because they're so successful. When you break that down and you're able to just move that particular shield, so to speak, to the side, you really have a lot in common with one another. Just for the desire to move forward and change your life for the better, you
And
know?
I'll say that every time I've met someone with this really impressive resume, someone with $200 million net worth, like I will meet them and I'll think, oh, you have a $200 million net worth, like, okay, like I can do this too. Like I mean that in the kindest possible way and the most like loving of these people who've taken risks to get them there type of a way. But when every single time that any person of like major success has met someone that it kind of eclipsed them and what it is that they're doing, there's this opportunity to see that everybody is just human. And at the cutting edge of capitalism, we are, if you're a parent, you still, change poopy diapers. Like there is always this path of just figuring out what is next if you're playing in the arena.
It's true. It's true. It's so true. I had the experience of working for a client who in a landscaping project. So I have a landscaping business as well, and very wealthy individual, very wealthy. And we were talking about a simple tree that was like $150, $200. And he said to me, that's really not in my budget. And it just blew me away. But in that moment, I was like, yeah, it doesn't matter how much money you make. Everybody's got a budget, you know? Everybody's got a budget.
Mm,
It's what you choose to
yeah,
spend your money on and how you choose to use it.
yeah.
So tell me about your process. So you got to this place in the sales, and what was it like other than the overall picture, like to take that first move, like how did
Mhm.
you start to approach that? That's a big jump, and it's a jump into the fear, and the net will appear. Like, how did you go about doing that?
I very much believe in walking before you run. And sometimes, you'll hear, oh, you got to push through fear and never buy a fourplex. You should buy a 400 unit for. I was not that person, and I am not and never will be that person. I know that I need to prove it to myself. I need to know that I've made some mistakes with a fourplex before I start adding zeros to the end, right? So I started small. I started with a fourplex. It worked. I proved it to myself that it worked. And then I bought a sixplex and it worked, right? So I gradually built up. And I realized kind of approximately about the time that I started acquiring in partnership the 53 and the larger stuff, um, that it's a math problem, that you end up with this cash flow at the end of every single month, that if it's dependable, if you've set things up in a way and acquired in a place that is going to have renters and rent appreciation for the foreseeable future, then you're going to be able to predict how much income you'll have to live off of. So I actually made a little calculator because I couldn't find anything that would help me figure that out. And I did a webinar on it. I'll give you that link if any of your listeners are interested. But at the
Oh, that'd be
end,
great.
it gives you this calculator that can help you estimate what you need in terms of floor of income to be willing to leave a W-2. So, but once you get there, I kind of want to give a little extra commentary that I had hit, like I had acquired a single family home that cash flowed $800 a month, right? And then that meant that I had eclipsed this number that I needed to see to leave my W-2. And I did this and I got to serve on a panel of some event. And I said, 900 people watching. I said to the one guy who I knew was in the audience, who was my peer, I'm like, don't sell me out, Jim. But I just hit my cash flow number and I'm going to be I'm going to be announcing my retirement to my employer within the next 6 months. Right. So it was a thing that I had made the decision previously and I hit that number, but I knew my friend was in the audience, so I had to have him not sell me out. Well, a bunch of weird stuff happened, and my boss moves from Chicago to Dallas, and then Jim ends up being my boss in like 5 weeks' time, 6 weeks' time. Right. So then he kindly comes to me and says, well, what was that serious? Because if that's the case, then I need to start recruiting. And I thought, okay, thank you, universe. This is exactly what I need, because I could have kicked the can down the road and continue to grow a portfolio and, do this job at the same time. But I realized that one way to get over the fear, the little hack in my brain, was I chose not to look at this like leaving my W-2 as a full forever retirement. I chose to look at it like an experiment and to remove that uh, permanence of retiring fully. So I decided, I put a little note in my phone 1 year from the date of my, experiment that I was taking off of my W-2, that if I don't like the way this feels in 365 days, then I'm going to make 3 or 4 phone calls. And I've built up a strong enough reputation as a medical device rep that I know I'm going to find another W-2 job in like 2 weeks, if that's what I want. Right. So I just continue to run it like an experiment to remove the permanence of that leaving my W-2.
Oh, it's such a relief to hear that, because so many times, whether you're, you can find all sorts of things on YouTube, but even in mentorship programs, and they push burn the ships, they'll burn the ships. It's like no one operates well under stress, whether it's financial stress, it's emotional stress, the fight part of our brain takes the hold. And, the psychology 101, when the reptilian brain takes over, everything else shuts down. You're not going to make informed decisions. You're not going to see things that you really, if you were in a calmer state of mind, that you would be able to say, maybe we should go this path instead. You won't see it. And
Mhm.
it drives me crazy when I hear people say that, because I'm watching people right now that have just gung ho dived in. Well, great for them. I don't have that type of mentality to do that. I'm more of a let's like you. Let's take this. I want to move forward. I'm gonna move forward. I'm gonna set these, these parameters for me to move forward, but I'm not going to put myself in a ridiculous situation that, if for some reason the new path I've chosen, which I've never done before, I need to pivot and it might take me a little bit longer, I haven't shot myself in the foot.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it's wise to burn the ships. I think that you need to get to a point that you know enough, right? Like, how do you get to the point to trust your judgment that I know enough to be able to move forward? So one book that was kind of all the rage in Go Abundance Women, and now we put it in our welcome packs for our new members. It's called The Psychology of Money. And my favorite takeaway was this idea of being reasonable enough. That I think especially, if you've seen the TED Talk, if you haven't seen the TED Talk, you should totally Google it. But that girls are taught to be perfect and boys are taught to be brave. Think about that the little girls normally, like, they raise their hands, they get straight A's, they do everything perfectly. So if you're a high achieving woman, you are probably a high achieving girl that did all of those things perfectly. And all things entrepreneurship inherently includes failure and bravery, and we weren't taught that, right? So if you as a woman, um, you need to figure out how to trust your own judgment. And in my opinion, that comes from reps and being around people that inspire you. And two, comes from this idea of being reasonable enough, because you don't need to be perfect. You don't need to have the very best top of the market and bottom of the market to make something work. It just needs to be reasonable enough to do well.
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking about, like, reflecting in my own life. I grew up on a farm, and did you too? Oh my God. And it's something about that life. It didn't matter. It didn't matter your sex. There were chores to be done and
Mhm.
you were going to do them. And that was it, and it taught me a very strong work ethic for sure that I carry
Mhm.
on today that allows me to be an entrepreneur right now. The thing that I find very interesting about it is that it also, it was such a teaching moment, and I never realized it. I'm just always, when you get much older, do you see these teaching moments in your childhood? But there, that doesn't matter whether you're male or female. You're going to do the weeding. You're going to feed the cattle. You guys work it out amongst you, who's going to do what, but it has to get done.
Yep.
Allowed I look now at individuals growing up, and I want, like you were saying, I have to be the perfect, I have to look the best. Well, you can't look the best when you're feeding cattle and nothing,
Well, there
you know?
wasn't Snapchat in the late 1900s, Candace, you know?
Yeah, yeah. So I think that it is, and it's almost like, even though we are moving forward in a lot of ways, like for equality, it's almost like we're also, I don't know, this is my personal opinion, and we don't need to, like, digress on this, but I almost feel like social media is kind of bringing us back, because
Mhm.
it's all like appearances, to talk about what you're trying to do, and it is. I have to look a certain part before I can go on this journey.
Yeah.
So the busy work gets in the way. I see a lot of people want to do all the busy work to get ready, to get ready, to get ready, but not take that action.
Right. All of the learning happens in the action. And I want to call back to the farm stuff. Like, one thing that has informed in my viewpoint of all things investing and all things in the world is cycles, right? Like,
Mhm.
you
Right.
plant seeds and then you have to wait, right? Like, you can't just, like, go plant more seeds and do more hustle and this like hustle porn stuff that you've seen going on in, that's
Yeah.
what they call it in, like, all of the Twitter and Gary Vee and Grant Cardone and all of that stuff. Like, cycles are a thing, right? And there is a time to work a 15-hour day and there is a time to rest. And the way that I have been approaching this investing overall is, I mean, I think that we'd agree that, 5 years ago, multifamily looked very different. That
Yes.
was a hustle time. And right now, with where rates are, with where, um, uh, listings are, like, they've gone down by 50%, 49%. I saw a study yesterday. So to think that you are, just because now is the time you decided that you want something, that it's going to happen easily or be a great choice just because, not saying it's not going to happen. I'm saying you're going to have to kiss 1,000 frogs to find a prince rather than kissing 50 frogs to find a prince. So, informing my ideas on that, I know we're not in the time that it makes the most sense to buy. That you're gonna be able to throw something up against a wall and it's gonna be incredible, right? So many people in GoBundance, there's more than 1,000 investors who are all $1 million net worth or more. Where many of us are sitting on our hands and just doing more with what we've got and giving a slight pivot to what our overarching activities are day to day, because the things that were working 5 years ago, they're just not now. And this idea of cycles, it comes from nature.
It's so true. And exactly what you're talking about with the social media, the idea of cycle doesn't exist. And I will admit, I got caught up in that like fear of missing out. Like, how come I'm not there yet? How come I'm not doing this? And I have to say that I've been in my own business for 32 years. I've had the fortune, it was a service industry. So it's landscaping. So you provide a service, you get money. But then I pivoted as a side hustle, lack of a better description, into real estate. And that is a long term, so it took a little while for my brain to register, like, what do you mean I'm not getting paid? Yeah, man, I've been doing so much work. Every
Mhm.
now and then I'll be just like, I'm just gonna stick with
Yeah.
landscaping for a while because the money just flows.
Yep.
Whereas
So
the other, it
I'll tell you a
won't
little bit
work
about
like that.
that.
Yes.
So, another thing I've learned being part of GoBundance, and we do kind of these dissections of how did you get from a 7-figure net worth into an 8-figure net worth or a 9-figure net worth. And time again, the pattern holds that you can get to, a tremendous net worth. I think the fastest way to $1 million net worth is through real estate and by waiting, because the money is made in the waits. That's a Warren Buffett quote. The money is made in the waits. But I think all of the people who end up at the $100 million net worth or go super fast to get where they're going in terms of growth of net worth, they get there with a business interest. So what you're doing in terms of creating cash flow capital out of thin air because you have created this incredible business, that is the path to a big flow of income, and then taking chips off the table and putting it into something that is going to be more predictable and sustaining. So, even my personal approach in this time of, I don't want to hit my head against a wall, cycle isn't working for multifamily.
Mhm.
I bought a car wash because that is something where, a couple of things. One, if I'm going to buy multifamily at a 4 cap, its value is NOI over cap rate, right? If I'm going to buy at a 4 cap, basically what I'm saying is to get that dollar of NOI, I have to buy it costs me $25. So to buy a dollar of cash flow, it costs me $25. But to buy a car wash costs 3 or 4x EBITDA. So basically, and I understand the math isn't exactly the same for anybody who fully understands it, but just understand that it's like kind of like $3 or $4 for a dollar of cash flow instead of $25 for a dollar of cash flow. And think about it, like, could I year over year increase my top line revenue of my apartment building for 3 years in a row? No, there's
No.
no way. Like, you have X number of units. Sure, you might be able to proportionally kind of increase it if you do a bill back or charge for parking or do a rehab and increase rent, but you can't double year over year like you could if you get twice as many cars to come into a car wash, say, right? So the path is you earn this one-time money from a business that can be a heavy cash flow that you can buy that cash flow for cheap if you're buying businesses, and then you throw it into multifamily, which is the most historically proven asset class in the entire world on debt that is non-recourse. That is my path to growing my wealth over time.
And again, what's feeding your wealth is a business that is a service-based business that
You
you
gotta
get that
have an
immediate.
engine for cash flow.
It's an engine. It's just
Yep.
an engine. And that's one of the things that I've been, coming around to, I'm early in the podcast, but it's really about this is where you're going to get the cash flow and something that's service based, not yes, your wealth will increase and your wealth can soar with real estate and all these other ways. But when you start talking about taking your cash and you're buying, say, a rental, and then you're doing a fix and flip, the big thing that people are saying, oh, I made 50 grand on this. Okay, 50 grand minus taxes,
Mhm.
minus everything that, capital gain. I mean, you really need to talk about what you're doing because it can end up being $10,000
Yeah.
cash, and you did that for 6 months. What?
Well, the buckets that I put these into my brain, and I think that this will resonate with you based off of what you just said. There's
Mhm.
things that I consider to be one-time money. Like if you exchange your time for dollars, you only get to do that once. If you flip a house, you only get to sell it once, right? Even a service-based business, that day you can't go cut a lawn or whatever the landscaping thing you're doing is. Like you only get paid if you do the thing and you get paid one time. And I would argue syndication, the bulk of your money is either on the promote or the fees that you're going to get, and you get that one time. That is
Yeah.
one time. And then there is a way to set something up that could pay you every single month for the rest of your life forever. So there's the one-time money and there's the forever money. So if you are doing a one-time money activity like flipping houses for express purpose of taking those proceeds and putting it into something that's forever money to build that floor of income that's going to support you as an annuity forever, that is the best approach. But if you're flipping houses to the tune of $1 million every single year and you're spending that $1 million, like you're eating the chicken instead of setting it up to lay eggs.
Yeah, that's so true. And I don't think people are really thinking that it's not really being projected that way. For those that want to, change their lives and increase their wealth, you really have to understand the dynamics of business and understand how money works and what makes wealth, not what isn't just in my bank account, because you have to move that. The velocity of money and having that move to grow is what's going to actually build your wealth over time.
Well said.
Yeah. Definitely. So tell me a little bit. I'm really intrigued about this GoBundance a little bit more. So is this something that everybody can just, all women can join, men, and on the men's side, are there fees? Like, tell me about that. How does all of that work? Because it's a very intriguing platform.
Sure. It's a mastermind. It's a peer mastermind. We have what we call pods, which is like the board of directors for my life. I have a meeting every other Friday with these same 5 women, and they know everything that's ever gone on with me. They call me to the carpet when I wanted to get in better health and I had a weight goal that I wanted to hit. And when I wasn't doing the things that it took to get there, like they asked me kind, loving, hard questions if that was something that I actually wanted to do. Right. So the pod is a really big thing, and then we do what we call micro tribes, where if you want to talk multifamily, people who are actually doing it get together to talk about it. The men and the women do it together. Those that micro tribe, flipping houses, triple net leases. If you want to get your body ready to live to 100, there's like 19 special purpose things that people get together to talk about. So it's a membership community that there is the men's side and the women's side, because I would argue the conversation of the fear of me failing my son as his mother is a better one to have with just girls in the room to feel fully seen. So we keep separate where it makes sense and come together like on the business stuff where that makes sense. Because we are the quote unquote tribe of millionaires, it's a different set of problems that you're trying to fix. If you are trying to grow a net worth or cash flows or make big life decisions, having a net worth of $1 million or $2 million, than it is if your net worth is like $20,000 and you're trying to get off the ground. It's a different problem to solve. One's not better than the other. They're just different problems, right? So GoBundance and GoBundance Women require that $1 million net worth. And then we have another group called Emerge, if you are an aspiring millionaire. That kind of teaches the same structure and goal to be able to get to that $1 million net worth. And I think, so Jamie Gruber, if you know him, he leads the Tribe of Millionaires podcast, which is the GoBundance podcast. He runs Emerge, and they've made like 16 or 17 millionaires in the last couple years being part of this. So it's been incredibly life-changing to be next to women who are doing cool stuff and to see that I'm not alone. Because if you've not read the Jamie Kern Lima book, Worthy, this
Yes, I have.
idea, if you are the only person doing the stuff that you're doing and you are working hard to be this version of yourself that you want to grow into, you might feel crazy. And I grew up in a town of 800 people, and they're wonderful people. They just don't want to run the path that I've been running. And I feel crazy because I'm running this path. But as her book said, that I steal this line all the time, I'm not crazy, I'm just first. Right? So the chance to be next shoulder to shoulder with other people who I'm not recreating the wheel. How did you deal with a contractor problem? How did you deal with a property manager issue? Why? Do you have a boilerplate contract that would help inform the direction that I need to go in this negotiation? We all come together, we all share, resources and, our peer group looking out for each other, because I firmly believe that you get two arms for a reason. I say this a lot. One to pull yourself up, but one to pull other people up with you. And if you're not doing that, then life is not as fulfilling.
It's pretty lonely. It's pretty
Yeah.
lonely. And I'll tell you, I have spoken to people that coach, and they're coaching people that are very, very wealthy, and they're miserable.
Hmm.
And honestly, I have worked for a few
Hmm.
that I just can't believe. It's like you have everything in the world, and you're so sad
So
because
Tony
you're
Robbins
alone.
has a quote that I love. This idea of that success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. So if you're not doing the work to be in love with your present, in love with your life as it is today, you will never be fully fulfilled. So you can't just chase that success. And that is a part of the reason that I wanted to join GoBundance as a member, because yes, the financial freedom matters, but it's about so much more than that. It's about, like, if you figure out the money, then you kind of get to go do all the other amazing stuff and squeeze the juice out of life. And that's really what it's meant to be.
Yeah. And that's the whole point. Like I was asked recently, like, why are you doing this podcast? I was like, and it was in that kind of like a snarly way. Why are you doing this? What are you getting out of it? Are you getting paid? And I'm like, no, I'm not getting paid for this podcast. It feels so amazing to be able to put the information that I've learned, and my way is not the only way. It's just a way. But
Mhm.
sometimes if someone hears something, they might be in the same predicament as someone else and not have anybody else around them. And I thought, man, a podcast, what a great way to get that information out there. And I believed, just like, you were talking about earlier with the universe providing for you with Jim in that situation that kind of pushed you forward. I feel like
Mhm.
this podcast will land in somebody's feet that are shared, that they'll be like, that's exactly where I am and where I need to go. It's getting my wheels turning, and now let me think about this in a different perspective. And that is a way that I personally want to be able to give back. I mean, I don't have to see any change, if anything, if I'm helping to change others' lives, but just knowing that I just feel selfish if I'm not sharing information that I know and experience. I don't like
Awesome.
feeling selfish.
That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this has been fantastic. And I would love to have you on in like a year to see like where you're going now. From that point, I'd like to follow up. Where are you now?
Yeah.
That would be really cool to be able to do something like that. Is there anything else you want to add? You want to tell to our listeners anything at all? Other
You
than,
know,
we'll put stuff in the show notes about, all the stuff that you are involved in and connected.
sure. I mean, one thing that I'd be a little remiss if I didn't mention is this idea of uh how do I take the first step, right? This idea of, the beauty of real estate is you can do whatever you want, but the worst part about real estate is you can do whatever you want and you have to choose. And I knew I was drawn to the immediate scale of multifamily. I knew I didn't want to be the beholden to investors and only own 1% of a deal, just so that I could say I have 1,000 units type of a thing, right? So I also am sensitive to the fact of thinking 20 or 30 grand into learning how to do the math is difficult. And that is 20 or 30 grand you could be putting into a deal. So I've had lots of people want to pick my brain, and I've been able to help probably, 100, 150 people figure out how to buy their first small multi for themselves or with just a few partners. So I compiled everything together and we are rolling out a course on it. So the intent is to keep that very low price so that it is achievable for anyone, and that you get to keep the balance of that $30,000 in your pocket to go buy a small multi for yourself. So that will be coming out in the next month or so. So I'll make sure you get those links.
Oh, please do, because I'll make sure I have that in there. Oh, wow. That's so exciting. And thank you for doing that. That'll help so many people, because it's not something that you just want to, hey, I want to do multifamily and just dive
Right.
in. You can, but
Right. I'm
ouch.
not a burn the ships kind of girl. I
Yeah.
do, like, I find a lot of power and having helped these, few hundred people. Like, if you make a few decisions and apply some limiting factors. If you know where you're looking and how you're looking and the type of debt you want to, you've made these decisions, then it becomes very clear that you can put on blinders and you can see the thing you're looking for. Because I know this for sure, that the person who just wants a deal, I just want any deal, just give me a deal, like that, you find nothing because you don't know what you're looking for, right? But the person who says, I want an 8-plex brick building, Omaha, Nebraska, these zip codes, pitched roof, finds 3 and they buy one. Right. So the purpose of this course is to help you refine what you're looking for, get laser focused, do the reps. And actually, I developed an underwriting model to help figure out the way that I want to own stuff. Because there's some really good models out there for syndication, but it doesn't, like, if you want to own it for yourself, like it's really difficult to make a couple changes. So that's part of it.
Excellent. And I just want to add, for those that haven't been in the multifamily world and have just maybe familiar with single family, it's
Mhm.
very different of the way that you look at the numbers, and
Mhm.
that you do want to, it's a business. It's
Yeah.
really looking at it, the business within a building, and you
Mhm.
have to kind of have that business mentality. You have to really understand how the numbers all interact. It's not just like, X minus Y equals A. It is that in the big picture, but there's
Yeah.
a lot of moving parts to X and there's a lot of moving parts to Y. And if you
Yeah.
don't get those right, then A is in the red.
Yeah. It's not
Yeah.
it's not harder to run the numbers on multifamily. It's just different. And it is
Mhm.
just a little bit more, but one thing I think it's important to understand is in multifamily, you're making assumptions. And an assumption is a freaking guess. And once you kind of accept that everybody's guessing, then that kind of that gave me a ton of confidence, right? But then I knew I was an absolute expert in this area of Indianapolis. You know what I mean? So all
Okay.
of my assumptions, I knew they were spot on because I wasn't looking in 47 different places. So how do you really focus in and find the one place to look?
That's great. I remember when I first started, I called you and you had pointed out to me the fear of missing out, and just
Mhm.
that, like, so much information, and this person and that person's going over there and they're looking there. It was just like being in the supermarket, and you're in like the cereal aisle, and it's like so many things. So many
Yeah.
things. I just need to choose the one. I just
Yeah.
need to look at the one.
Yep. And then as soon as you hone in on it, it's something that you can find. And then you recognize when it's doable or not. Because the thing that I've noticed of these, 100 and however many people is, the minute you find something that is doable and you realize that, oh my God, everything's green on the spreadsheet. I don't know what to do now. It's like the dog chasing the car who
Mhm.
catches the car and then they don't know what to do. Right.
Yeah.
But if you get to a point that you've done enough reps that you can trust your own judgment, then that is the thing. That is the path to know when it makes sense and it's reasonable enough to take that leap.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad you came on the podcast. Thank you so much.
This
This is
was so fun,
fantastic.
Candace.
And
Thank you.
looking forward to getting the course link to add on for our guests.
Absolutely. You've got it.
So like I said, I'll have all the notes and a way on particularly on the resources tab on the website, and also on the YouTube channel. You'll be able to see the show notes as well. But I just wanted to leave our guests to remember that you are your own genie in the bottle, and to do something today that your future self will thank you for. And I appreciate everyone for listening. And Mandy, thank you so much for being on the podcast and sharing.
Thank you. So much fun. I appreciate you.
Thank you. All right, I'll talk to you soon. Bye,
Okay,
everyone.
bye.
The info in this podcast is straight from our personal experiences. You alone possess the power to manifest your desires. You are the genie in the bottle, awaiting your command. So ask smart questions. We're not licensed financial pros, so be sure to consult with a licensed professional, attorney, or tax consultant.